Jai Shri Mataji, all brothers and sisters. Today's meditation from Portugal. Let us all take up our Kundalini and do a bandhan together. Shri Mataji, we, your children from Portugal, are gathered today online to offer a meditation to your holy lotus feet. We are so blessed to be part of the preparations for the Guru Puja. And to be part of this wonderful collective and feel the presence of all our brothers and sisters all around the world. Thank you, Shri Mataji, for giving us this opportunity to worship you once again as the Adi Guru. We will listen to an Ave Maria sung by two yogis from Portugal. Jai Shri Mataji. Let us worship Shri Ganesha.
Om Tvameva Sakshat Shri Ganesha Sakshat Shri Adishakti Mataji Shri Nirmala Devi Namo Om Tvameva Sakshat Shri Ganesha Sakshat Shri Adishakti Mataji Shri Nirmala Devi Namo Namaha Om Tvameva Sakshat Shri Ganesha Sakshat Shri Adishakti Mataji Shri Nirmala Devi Namo Namaha Om Dvameva Sakshat Shri Ganesha Sakshat Shri Adishakti Mataji Shri Nirmala Devi Namo Namaha Shri Ganesha Tarvashirsh Om Namaste Ganapataye Tvameva Pratyaksham Tattvamasi Tvameva Kevalam Kartasi Tvameva Kevalam Dhartasi Tvameva Kevalam Hartasi Tvameva Sarvam Kalviram Brahmasi Tvam Sakshad Atmasi Nityam Ritam Vachmi Satyam Vachmi Ava Tvamam Ava Vaktaram Ava Shrotaram Ava Dataram Ava Dhataram Ava Nuchanam Ava Shisham Ava Pashatat Ava Purastat Avo Staratat Ava Dakshinatat Ava Chodvatat Ava Dharatat Sarvato Mam Pahi Pahi Samantat Tvam Vang Mayastvam Chinmaya Tvam Ananda Mayastvam Brahma Maya Tvam Sachidananda Dvityosi Tvam Pratyaksham Brahmasi Tvam Yana Mayo Vijnana Mayosi Sarvam Jagadidam Tvato Jayate Sarvam Jagadidam Tvatastishtati Sarvam Jagadidam Tvailayameshati Sarvam Jagadidam Tvai Pratyeti Tvam Bhumi Rapo Analo Anilo Nabha Tvam Chatvari Vakpadani Tvam Gunatrayatitaha Tvam Dehatrayatitaha Tvam Kalatrayatitaha Tvam Muladhara Sthitosi Nityam Tvam Shakti Trayatmakaha Tvam Yogino Dhyayanti Nityam Tvam Brahma, Tvam Vishnu, Tvam Rudras, Tvam Indras, Tvam Agnis, Tvam Vayus, Tvam Suryas, Tvam Chandramas, Tvam Brahma Bhur Bhuvasvaram, Ganadim Purvam Ucharya, Varnadim Tadanam Taram, Anuswaraha Parataraha, Ardhendu Lasitam Tarena Ridham Eta Tava Manusvarupam Gakaraha Purvarupam Akaro Madhyamarupam Anusvarashantyarupam Binduruttara Nadha Sandhanam Samhita Sandhi Saisha Ganesha Vidya Ganaka Rishihi Nishrut Gayatri Chandaha Ganapati Devata Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha Ekadantaya Vidmahe Vakratundaya Dhimahi Tanno Danti Prachodayat Ekadantam Chaturhastam Vasham Ankushadharinam Radam Cha Varadam Hastaibi Bhanam Mushakchajam Raktam Lambodaram Shurpa Karnakam Rakta Vasasam Rakta Gandhanu Liptangam Rakta Pushpaihi Usupujitam Bhaktanu Kampinam Devam Jagat Karanam Achutam Avir Bhutam Cha Shrustyadau Prakrute Purushat Param Evam Dhyayati Yo Nityam Saha Yogi Yoginam Varaha Namo Vratapataye Namo Ganapataye Namaha Pramathapataye Namaste Astu Lambodharaya Ekadantaya Vignanashine Shiva Sutaya Shri Varada Murtaye Namaha Sakshat Shri Adi Shakti Mataji Shri Nirmala Devi Namo Namaha.
Jai Shri Mataji. Mother, please come in my heart. Let me clean my heart so that you are there. Put your feet into my heart. Let your feet be worshipped in my heart. Let me not be in delusion. Take me away from illusions. Keep me in reality. Take away the sheen of superficiality. Let me enjoy your feet in my heart. Let me see your feet in my heart. Let me feel your feet in my heart. Jai Shri Mataji.
Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Shri Mataji Nirmalama, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
Shri Mataji. Today we pray that all of the 10 primordial masters may be awakened within us, that each and one of them become present and awakened on our subtle system, and that all of their qualities radiate from our being. May qualities such as their gravity, their devotion, their inner strength, and their wisdom be awakened in us. May we become detached, loving, and wise. May we become moral, and may we have an absolute understanding of the divine. And may that divinity radiate from our beings, and may we become gurus. We will now listen to Shri Mataji's talk from Guru Puja 1990.
In Sahaja Yoga, the Guru Puja has a very different significance from any other Guru Puja. When you worship your Guru, you are also worshipping the Guru within you. This is not in any other Guru-disciple system, because in you, the Guru, the Master, has been awakened. And so, when you are worshipping your Guru, then this Master within you is also worshipped, you respect it, you glorify it, you awaken it, and you manifest it. This we have to realize, that in Sahaja Yoga, if you are a Sahaja Yogi. Now the quality of Guru, first and foremost, is that he makes you meet God. Means he raises the Kundalini and establishes the relation between the all-pervading power, and as your Guru is Adishakti, you make that person meet also the Adishakti. So you have a double advantage, that at the same time, when you give them realization, not only that you make them feel the union with the divine power, but you can make them meet the divinity itself, the source of divine power. So your responsibility as Sahaja Yogis is very great, because in you there is the Guru. Now in our mantras we say that, Mother, I am my own Guru. But saying that do we realize that if I am my own Guru, this I and my Guru, between the two, what have I achieved? Where am I? Can I guide myself? Have I got the light of the Spirit on my attention so well established and manifested that I can guide myself and guide others later on? First of all, in the Guru principle, it is important that you see to yourself the introspection. Can I be my own Guru? Have I become my own Guru? Now, in your case, your Guru is a mother, a woman. So, it has to be among women that the development of their Guru qualities have to be very well manifested. But it's just the way it is not. For them, they are still the mothers, or they are the wives, or they are Saj Yoginis. But they don't realize that you are also the Gurus. Because your mother is a Guru, because she is a woman, and you have to be also of that quality that people should say, look at this woman, she's such a Guru. But still, as I hear from the different leaders, that the ladies are absolutely still very much far away and are very few who can be called as real Saj Yoginis. It's a sad thing to hear. Because if you still keep to all these mundane things of womanhood and the drawbacks of womanhood, which has come out of domination, maybe because of always they were shown to be something lower. Especially in the Christian religion, they were never regarded as something holy. They have this kind of a diffidence in them that they don't understand that dharma can be established more by women than by men. And the Guru's work is to establish the dharma in the society, in the family, in relationships. All these Gurus which are representing all these great symbols here have done nothing but have established dharma. But first of all, before establishing the dharma, we should watch ourselves. Have we got dharma within ourselves or not? First of all, the quality of a person who has dharma is that he listens to others. He obeys. And this is something has gone wrong with the Western women, I think, that they have forgotten how to listen to others, how to obey others. That's why their children also don't obey them. Obedience, if you do not have, nobody is going to obey you. First, you must learn to obey. A person like Kabira, because he was born of a unknown caste, people didn't know what he was born from. And he could not go directly to any Guru. So he heard about Ramanand, great Guru of those days, who used to go to the river Ganges every morning to have his bath. So one day on his steps, Kabira kept lying, and in the darkness, the Guru could not see, and he touched him with his feet. He said, "Who are you?" So he said, "I'm Kabir, and I'm your disciple." And he caught hold of his feet. And when he caught hold of his feet, he said, "All right, come along." And then he became such a great saint in India. People know him more than they know his Guru. He became so great. The basic thing is humility. Yesterday you saw how the musician was humble. All the time he was humble. He didn't know how to express his humility every time. All the time he was humble. Because in humility only you can receive the blessings. You can receive the quality that is of your Guru. Now for a Guru, as you have seen, that in my own way, in my own image, you have to come up. First of all, your life should be absolutely transparent. Transparency is the essence of Sahaja Yoga. Everybody should know what you are doing, where you are going, what is the way you live, what is the way you are behaving. I have seen people who are gurus, also in the sense that we call them leaders, or we can call them sub-gurus, or they cannot be called as priests, but I can say communication centers as they are. In them, you find that they are very fussy type of people. Always think about their body, always think about their comfort, always grudge about what's nobody looked after them, as if they suffer from persecution mania. Or they will grudge about food. I didn't eat my food for one day. It doesn't matter. For a guru, it's better to starve for about 3-4 days nicely, so that you get over this idea of hunger. You'll be surprised, since I'm here, I have not eaten anything much. I'm just drinking something, because just the guru has no hunger, right? Because it is in your stomach, the guru vibrations are so much that you don't feel like eating anything. So then what do you eat and how do you eat and all these things that we have given up to come to Sahaja Yoga. So even if leaders have this nonsense in their head, what do you get to eat? I mean, this is the basics, absolutely. And when I hear some people telling me, oh, what did they eat and how did they eat and all, it's like I feel they are like tourists in Sahaja Yoga. Just come in Sahaja Yoga like tourists to see places and go around and to know where you get, in what restaurant you get good food and cheaply. All this is so basically, absolutely not a manifestation of Guru principle. Now you have seen your Guru as she is. I do not know what I eat, what they give me, what I want. They go on giving me whatever they think I like. And I just don't know if I like that thing or not, or what is it. If they ask me, Mother, what will you have? I said, what will I have? I don't know really. What will I have? Anything. So there has to be no choices. First of all, not to waste your attention on choices. Of course, only on vibrations. I mean, supposing you go to a restaurant, find all kinds of funny vibrations there, people are getting drunk or anything, then of course you should say. But all the choices must be based on vibrations and not on material things. That you get something nice there, let's go there, and they'll travel for 50 miles to go eat something nonsensical. It should be all nonsense for all Sahaja Yogis. And when I say Sahaja Yogi, it means also Sahaja Yoginis. So the food part of it is aswada. We should not have any taste for any special food. Especially in France, to say that people may not like. But French are very, very conscientious or aware about the food part. I don't know how far they make really good food, but at least they think they eat very good food. So, the eating of good food is a kind of an addiction. It's a kind of an addiction. It's something like drug, that you must have good food. So Zen started this system of what they call the tea ceremony. In the tea ceremony, what he did, I mean, I have been through that, and it's really quite a test of people. With me it was all right, but the rest of them got really frightened. that in the tea ceremony, whatever rituals they do, they give you a tea, which is so bitter. We can say quinine raised to power 108. It's like that. And they give you very nicely, handle you with such ritual that you have to take it. So first they say you see the cup without thinking. So he tried to make thoughtless awareness through the cup. I don't know how much one can achieve with that. But that tea that you take once, your tongue is good for anything. And to compensate it, they give you something sweet, which is again sweetness raised to power 108. So sweet that it becomes bitter. So sweet. So this is just to conquer the tongue. Zen must have thought that better give them this tea ceremony, where there is no tea, there's nothing but just you really give such shocks to your tongue so that after that you can eat whatever you get. And that's why you must know that Japanese can eat anything. They have solved their food problem because they can eat anything. They can just fish out some crabs or could be some prawns, just peel them out like peanuts and eat them like that. I think Zen has solved this problem for them because they have food shortage. And this is how they can eat everything. They can eat the bark of the tree, they can eat the snake, they can eat the lizards, they can eat the frogs, everything they can eat. So all their eating problems are solved in that country by Zen, I think, because you have no taste. But in this, I think the worst in the whole world are Indians. They are the fussiest people for food because their women have spoiled them. They know very good cooking and they know how to handle their husbands by cooking very well. And the way they cook food for them, you see, the men have to go back to Indian food. Now, even if they travel the whole world, they'll need Indian food. They can't get over their tongues. It is such a big conditioning in India of food that I just don't know how will they get out absolutely the basics which are important. Gandhiji tried that very much in the ashram. He used to give horrid food, boiled food with the oil of mustard on top, and nobody could eat that, raw. And he used to make everybody eat that. Not only that, he would make them clean the bathrooms, WCs, everything so that you get rid of your nose also, that you need everything. Because so many people, while eating also in India, will put something to their nose, so they smell everything. So they are oversensitive to their tongue and to their nose, but not to their eyes. To eyes they are not. For eyes, I would say the most sensitive people are Japanese and Chinese. And also the Western people are very much sensitive because they don't like to see anything dirty, filthy or ugly. Indians won't mind any dirt, filth, anything, just like dogs and horses or buffaloes. They can walk through any dirt, filth, anything. Nothing matters to them. Anything ugly, ugly building or an ugly dress or anything is all right for them. It doesn't matter. To their eyes, it doesn't matter at all. Only thing, kitchen should be clean and they are all the time in the kitchen. So we don't have to learn all these bad things from Indians. There are some good things they have. But there are certain things, theirs are very bad conditioning. And the next to that are, I think, the French. But if you eat English food, you can become quite good because there's no taste in English food. So I have no problem anywhere because I think I have no taste at all and I can eat anything. Anyway, it is cooked, it's all right. I don't bother about what is cooked, what is not cooked. But if you have some French people for a dinner in a restaurant, they'll spend 45 minutes deciding what they are going to eat. I mean, what a waste of energy. 45 minutes just to decide what they are going to eat. After all, what is so great, what you are going to eat? It's all there, just one thing everybody should have. So for Sahajogis, it is important to give up this idea, I will have this. First of all, nobody should ask, what will you have? To me also. I do not like people asking me questions, what will you have? Because I have to think about it and I want to be nirvichara. So, this is one big ordeal which we do not understand, how much we are attached to food. And food goes in the stomach. And not only that, it spoils our guru system, but also spoils our physical system. So we should try not to look at food. That's why fasting was told to all the people who wanted to develop their Gurupad. So that they should not fast. But they do not fast normally because they think of food. So there's no fasting. I mean, fasting means that you go into nirvichara and don't think of food, but they are all the time thinking of food, so it has no meaning and you are just the same. Whether you eat it or not, your mind is eating it all the time. Then you start thinking, when will I end my fast and where will I go to have what? So this is a very basic thing that we should get rid of our habits, of our conditionings, what we are going to have and what food we are going to have. Our children also should be given a proper training about it. That is all right. Sometimes there is no salt, sometimes there is no sugar, doesn't matter. And sometimes there is nothing, doesn't matter. Nothing important for Sahajogi. You can live without food for days together, no problem. So for a Sahajogi, there's nothing like taste of food and hunger. There's only one hunger, is to be purified, to be clean. This is one of the things that dirties our mind, we should say, that we think about food all the time. Even in Russia, I found people carried all Indian things there. They were cooking all Indian things, and I am poor thing, I can't eat anything. So they brought everything for me thinking I'm an Indian, but they don't know I am Zen. I do not have sense of taste. So to get over taste, one has to work out. It's an experiment we have to do with ourselves. Unless and until we introspect ourselves and do experiments, we cannot rise. Because though the Kundalini is trying her level best, but your conditionings are so great that it cannot pierce through and cannot make you onto that guru level. If you see the lives of all these gurus, they were married, they had children, they lived a normal life, but in their own personal life, they were absolutely detached people. So first detachment should come from food. And there, whatever you like, you just don't eat. That's the best way, because of liking something, supposing if somebody is fond of ice cream, he must have already spoiled his liver, so they give up. If you like pasta, give up pasta. If you like something else, just give up. Don't ask for it and don't eat it at all, so that, you see, your mind will get a little bit detached from it. It's very easy to achieve this detachment, I think, if you work it out in a sensible way. Just try to punish your body. You see, if you are your guru, you better take hold of, first of all, your body and your conditionings. You have to treat your body with this thing. I am told many girls who are married abroad are still making their Indian food and eating. That's horrible it is. They should starve. If they starve for, say, about 5-6 days or maybe 8 days, then they'll eat any food in any case. That's why the fasting is given. So one should adjust oneself to any kind of food you can have. And if you want to survive, then you eat anything, So just make it a point that you get rid of this very simple conditioning you have of liking the food that you want to eat and you don't want to eat. I think a Sajogini or Sajogi who cannot get rid of this little thing, then how can you call him a Sajogi? I don't know, he's very asaj. Because the other day I met one lady. I said, what is the matter? Where have you been? She said, I've been looking out for some sort of an Indian ingredient. I said, how can you get it here in this Spain? You cannot. Why? Because they asked me to make Indian food. All right. Without that, can't you make Indian food? What is the need to run all the way, whole day for one small little thing called hing? There's a big name for that. It's a small little thing. Just to get that, she had to run all over the places to get it. So, for people who are Sajogis, if they are such, whatever is available, you can make something nice out of it and eat it. So that shows what? Shows sagacity, shows trupti, shows your satisfaction. And that is one of the manifestations of a guru, that he is a satisfied soul. He is just self-contained, doesn't bother. Now, for example, some people, especially in the West, thank God they are not spoiled by their wives so much. They don't have so much of conditioning. They can eat anything. I've seen that when they come on the Indian tour, all the Indians say horrid food was given and the poor things were eating that horrid food and this and that. And I asked them, which place you like the best? They said, Brahmapuri. I said, eh? They were saying Brahmapuri had the worst food and everybody was complaining. No, Brahmapuri was the best because we could bathe in the river and we could sing and we could enjoy it. See, that's the sign of one thing to get rid of your bad habits of food business. Now the second part is, for the body you need comforts. I must congratulate the Western Sajogis that they may be coming from any walk of life. I must say, Indians have to learn from them. They may be coming from any position or status. All of them enjoy the comfort of the spirit when they travel in the tour. They do not ask for, I haven't got a chair, I haven't got a bed, I haven't got a proper things. In this way, you see, you will realize that the body comfort is of no importance. We have just spoilt our body. There's no need. No need. Body, you put it anywhere, will sleep in any case. If you cannot sleep for 2 nights, all right, put on some music for 1 night or 2 nights as we had here. You will sleep anyway. So this is the second point, is that we have to give up body comfort. But the third point, where I think the Western people falter, is their materialistic attitude. Materialistic attitude and their fondness of their eyes. So one of them is the worst of all. I mean, the worst and worst of all is that you can never have, that's such a big blot. If you have that, is to have a roving eye and things like that. That's out of question. That's out of question for women or for men. They are not Sajogis by any chance. They have to have very clean eyes. That part is all right. And the second part is the greed, lust and greed. Of course, with Sahaja, maybe the lust part is over, but greed is still there with so many who get lost. So I would say Indians do not have this lust problem, but they still have greed problem. Means they want to buy something like a radio or some electrical stuff they must buy. If they come abroad, they must buy something. It's all right. If you get it, well and good. If they don't get it, well and good. It should be. But for a Westerner, you see, he would not like to give up his furniture, which his great-grandmother had it. Though he can't sit on it because it's so old. If he sits on it, it will break. But he must keep it to show off. that I had a great-grandmother who gave this unique chair. According to Indian standards, it's junk, absolute junk. Because it is good for nothing, you put it in the drawing room, nobody can sit on it, and it looks junky. But according to the Western mind, the older it is, the better, whether it is a junk or anything. He'll have so many junks in the house, and then they will sell like hotcakes. Because there's a very subtle materialistic attitude towards matter, that this will sell like hotcakes if I sell it, because there must be another mad Westerner who would like to buy that junk. You see? So this junk that you have in the house is better to get rid of, because God knows how many people must have used, like it's like a grave in the house. It's a grave. So to have, then also the antique jewelry. Antique jewelry is another man. Antique is a, what you can say, is the fad or addiction of the Western people. Antique. For us, nothing is antique, because we still produce antique things, beautiful things. So Indians don't understand the value of antiques. They don't understand how these people are so mad after torn things and broken things and dirty things and filthy things. But the Western mind has been brought up that way. Now in these antique things, I have seen that once I went to somebody's house, you see, and he asked me with very great honor to sit on his chair. And as soon as I sat on the chair, I thought there were snakes and there were scorpions all biting me. I got a fright, I said, what is it? He said, this is from great-great-great-grandmother. You see, she gave us this thing. I said, it will break, I better sit outside. So this also, madness of this antique is so much that it is unbelievable how people go into it. So there's a joke in India. There's a very great writer called as Premchand. He wrote about two Englishmen going on the road of Benares when they were hit by a lota that they use for their bathrooms, fell on their feet. And it fell on their feet, and he jokingly says, on the feet where all the bureaucrats fall. Means all Indian bureaucrats used to fall at the feet of the English at that time, so he made a joke. But doesn't matter. Then the English, you see, looked at the thing and they were very angry. And immediately they took to law. You have to come to the courts, you have to come to the police, and we're going to report this has fallen there, it has hit us and all that. So there was a clever man, he knew the English or the Western mind. He said, sir, do you know this lota has very valuable? He said, why? Because this one was used by Akbar the Great. So ancient it is. He said, really? Yes, it is. And you just don't quarrel with them and ask them for this lota. And he told in Indian language to them that I have befooled these people, I have told them that this lota belonged to Akbar, and you have to take this lota and use this lota to just to befool them. So then they asked, but all right, we'll forgive you, we'll not take you to any courts or anything, but you just give us this lota. They said, no, we can't. We said, why? Because it's such an antique piece, you see. In India, you won't find anybody respecting antique pieces, especially in Benares, nobody bothers. So they said, really, yes, it belonged to Akbar, and my forefathers worked with him, so he gave us this lota. We can't give you, we are sorry. They said, no, please give us, you see, we'll not take you to the police. All right, you charge us. Whatever money you charge us and all that. In those days, they paid 1,000 rupees. This is equal to now 1 crore, I think. They gave, these English paid them and bought that lota, which had nothing to do with Akbar or anyone. So this madness of antique has to go away from our minds. It's such a built-in thing within us that we always talk of antiquities. Perhaps maybe because of wars everything was destroyed, and whatever was in the olden times was something very beautiful and good, and now we are not making very good things, perhaps, maybe that is the reason. But now we are making nice things we can make. Now in England I was surprised the old crafts are coming up. Everywhere I go, the old crafts are coming up. So to respect antiques means you just stop making the old craft revive. Because you pay so much to the antiques, the same thing made today won't fetch the same price as it was. Now this has ruined our creativity, ruined our handwork, and it has ruined our whole, I think, the quality of our life, because the way we are mad after antiques. So this also should go from your head, that anything antique is something good. It's a very superficial value, if you see to it. Because people have think that antique is something expensive. It's just a marketing style that people have felt that this is expensive, that is expensive, so it's something great. To wear something stupid and to say that this is antique jewelry and go about. I mean, God knows how many people must have used it and must have worn it, and what must be the feelings of that person. So we have to understand that this conditioning that we have in our heads, that we must have something antiques with us, keep something of such value. I mean, these questions never arose before, so it's not written in any books. Any one of the books of the gurus is not written that don't care for antiques. They have written don't drink, don't smoke, all other things which spoils your nabi. They have written all these things, but they have not written that don't worry about antiques so much. You see, and I find that's a craze nowadays, and so we have to tell people that we have to be careful. Moreover, I feel the very people have gone to drugs, and that maybe that because they use so much antiques that the bhoots from the antiques must have got them. Can't understand that why people are so melancholy all the time, crying, weeping and all. So the conditionings of these matter, as we think it to be, is to be absolutely taken out. Of course, I mean, in certain countries we should say that the antique things were made were good and nice. But only because something is antique should not be respected, because of its intrinsic value of aesthetics, that it's all right. But one has to see first of all the vibrations of everything. If the vibrations are good, then you should accept. Otherwise, because we have the language of vibrations. And we have to use the language of vibrations. Once you start using the language of vibrations, you'll be surprised how you will get complete picture as to what is to be done. So, to get rid of these three conditionings for our body is very important. And the worst thing for a Sahaja to think that he's sick is a sort of a tarnishing the name of Sahaja. If you are still feel you are sick, you better get out of Sahaja. Because either you get well or you are not a Sahaja. One of the two things. If you are a Sahaja, you have to see that you get well. And if there are certain problems also, doesn't matter. Now, for example, supposing I have certain problems which I know because of Sahaja, because of my position as the mother, my position as Adishakti. Certain physical things I have to face, parasympathetic working I have to face. But I go through it. It's accepted. You have to accept your body as it is. And you are not to sort of say that I'm not well or there's something wrong with me and go on complaining like some old hag. Never think you are old, first of all. Never think that you have gone old or you are no good. Look at your mother. I never think that way. Yesterday, half of you were sleeping. I was still alert and listening to the music. And today I am again alert here. So, if you have a guru, then that image should be with you, that we look at our mother, she's so old, how much she travels, how much she does. All right, you might say she's Adi Shakti, but little bit of Shakti you too have. And that Shakti is to be shown by your full dynamism. If you have no dynamism and if you still feel very weak, that means you are not a surgeon. So just ask for any amount of energy can come to. That dynamism should be there. Now this I would say for the physical self, that one has to know that you are all younger and getting younger and younger, but not the stupidity of youth, but gravity, the gravity of the age. Actually, I have seen children who are born realized. They are very grave. They won't do anything that is not dignified. And they will never, I've never heard them talking to some of the Sahajoginis have a bad habit of talking tuck, 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 tuck among themselves. It's a very bad habit, which shows that they're still very much lacking. Just wearing saris or wearing bindis, you do not become a Sahajogini. First of all, what is the gravity? You should only speak whenever it is necessary. So I have seen these Sahajogis who are born realized children. They stand like this before me. And they say very few words, but beautiful words they speak. And say things which you can remember all the time. They just do not go on wasting anything. And they are extremely obedient. So from them one can learn that these are born realized, and the way their guru principle is acting, are we also acting the same way? Or we are doing something that is not good for our ascent. So even after coming to Sahaja Yoga, if you do not try hard to introspect yourself, you have missed the point that you compare yourself with your guru all the time. Now, then everything has to be understood in the right perspective that we are Sahaja Yogis. Now for a Sahaja Yogi, first and foremost thing that he has to have love. First, for others, not for himself. If you are all the time worried about yourself, my body is such, my this thing such, and I have to do this, then you don't love others. But do you see to the comfort of others? Do you feel the compassion of other Sahaja Yogis? Do you feel what have I to bring for them? What is missing in them? Do you work it out? Do you go out of the way to help them? First of all, Sahaja Yogis. Now Sahaja Yogis are different things. I have seen many Sahaja Yogis will go and take the side of the non-Sahaja Yogis and try to debase the Sahaja Yogis. It's a very wrong thing. You belong to this new race. And the people who do not belong to this new race, and if they are attacking anybody, these are your hands, your feet, your head. And if they attack it, it is duty bound that you help them instead of helping the others. Maybe something wrong with this person, doesn't matter. You need not show all the fair play there. In that place, you should support a Sahaja Yogi out and out. Later on, you may correct and you may tell that person, you should not have done like this, it was wrong. So this dignity and this understanding comes only through silence. But if you are chirping all the time, talking, tuck, 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 it can never can make you deeper person. You'll be just flying in the air with all that. So for women now, is best is to take to Mauna, is to keep quiet. Just keep quiet. They all the time want to talk. I have heard from all the leaders that it's a big problem with women. They just go on talking stories, telling stories. But if you ask them to come and speak, they'll start shaking. How many can give speeches? Women? If you understand that if you cannot give a speech, you better not talk also. You should be able to give a speech because your mother is a woman, she gives speeches. Why can't you give some speech? You cannot. If I make you stand here, you will be shaking. I know that. But if it comes to murmuring souls, you are there. So that is one thing women have to be very careful. And as today is the Guru Puja, I have to tell you things, not as a mother, but as your Guru. That if you have to ascend, the best thing is for you to stop talking. Maunam sarvartha sadhanam. Maun means to keep quiet. It gives you all kinds of facilities. Just keep quiet. If somebody is talking too much, just keep quiet. If somebody is trying to criticize, keep quiet. That's your silence, that's your right, that's your domain, that you can keep silent. Just watch that person. If it comes, then to answer, then you can answer better. But if somebody is trying to attack you, just keep silent. But this silence has to be established. And one should only establish by not talking too much. I have seen also when I am sitting here, I have seen women talking among themselves. And this is very wrong. You must learn the silence. Like yesterday I saw so many ladies also were walking out, walking in. In the church, will you do that? You won't do it. In the church, there is no Christ. There's a horrible priest sitting there, but you cannot do it. You all keep quiet, you sit there nicely. I've never seen anybody walking out here and there and doing all kinds of things, putting the children in front like that, making them sleep. Never. Can you do that in the church? What a disciplined people observe in that church, which is an artificial place. And where you are now, that kind of a silence has to be there. And that kind of understanding, that depth, that awe has to be there. But because we have not yet developed that Guru thing, if you have developed it, then immediately it will work out. You will see your gravity will show in your behavior. So this is for our attention not to be wasted. To discuss somebody, to discuss about others' characters, we have no business. Do we discuss the character of one hand to another hand? To discuss about what has happened about marriages, things like that. Also, marriage is just, in Sahaja Yoga, it's not such an important thing. Some people pay too much attention to marriage. You see, marriage becomes a headache. Oh, so then what about my marriage? Then again 10 minutes you see that person, what about my marriage? Again after 10 minutes, what about my marriage? You want to run away. I mean, you see, it's something becomes like a mania for people. What should we do? And the whole thing is all depends, the whole programming depends on how you are going to get married. So you have come to Sahaja Yoga, you are sannyasis. You are not married people in a way. You are married only to Sahaja Yoga. That's your husband, that's your wife. And the so-called husband and wife are there. But if they are not Sahaja Yogis, then you are unmarried, definitely. So too much attention is paid in Sahaja Yoga to marriages. I have seen that. If before marriage, before Sahaja Yoga, marriage was a joke. Every third day there was a divorce. And people would run away and do all kinds of things. Then when they got married, after Sahaja Yoga, they are the greatest romantic people ever known in the whole world. I mean, all Romeo and Juliets going about. I just don't understand. Even in the Indian villages, people complain that what sort of these people are. I mean, they have no sense at all, and the way they go around, are they the saints? So that saintliness, that sannyas, that asceticism has to be expressed in our married life. I don't mean that you don't have relationship with your husband, but in a very private way. It has to be extremely private, and it should not be such a great thing to go into romanticism. You'll ruin the whole of Sahaja Yoga in the West if you start doing that nonsense. Because also there's an idea about it that, you see, you fall in love. But then you'll fall. That's the first point. You'll fall. You want to rise. So this attachment and this worry about the husband and this and that, I mean, you can carry on with any kind of a husband and wife if you are a Sahaja Yogi. You should be able to. I mean, I know that's very simple. Your husband is a study, wife is a study, that's all. You study a person, what sort of a person is. But for that you have to have the witness state. And you have to see, you have to be detached. So in marriages, one has to be detached. But on the contrary, I find that just after the marriage, they want to organize some special thing for them to go to some sort of a honeymoon or some sort of a thing. I don't know how these ideas crawl up. These are coming from the old conditionings of things. And after honeymoon, they come and say, Mother, this marriage is not going to work out. So it's better to do slow and steady and then decide. Because you just jump into honeymoon mood and come back and say, Mother, this I've started thinking and I don't think. I know of a lady who was jumping with an Indian gentleman, and she was on her way to Australia. In Singapore, she telephones that, Mother, I don't think this marriage will work out. And here everybody complained to me, Mother, these two are behaving in such a manner that Indians are rather embarrassed. So the sense of shame you must learn from Indians. They never, husband and wife never sit together in India. It's regarded as bad manners, and it should be with you also. That even in the puja, even in anything they are sitting in the public, what is the need to show your relationship in the public? It's only in the private. This is one of the things when if you start understanding, there will be a proper adjustment. Men should be with men in the public, women should be with the women together. But the women or men, whatever they are, whatever are their bad points should not be brought back. Like I would say, the men have jealousies and they have power orientation, and they discuss about leadership, and they get a shock if you tell them that you are not going to be a leader, as if they think leadership is something very concrete. It's the greatest myth ever going, is this leadership. There's nothing like leaders in this Sahaja Yoga. It's just a joke. And your mother is very good at playing serious jokes. So be careful. Don't be childish about it. You have to understand that this is a big joke going on. And it's just a testing point. And if I test you wrong, you can tell me, but I think this has worked well because I can test people very well on that level. And immediately I know when the person gets onto the horse of ego. So, for your mental attitude has to be different, and our priorities have to change. Our priorities have to change. What are our priorities? First and foremost thing is our ascent. Is the first priority. For our ascent, whatever is needed has to be done. If you have to punish your body, all right. If you have to punish yourself, all right. If you have a conditioning, get rid of it. Just introspect yourself. That is self-realization, is to know yourself. When you know yourself and know what is clinging on to it, just to remove it completely, work it out the way you like. Work it out the way you like. You see, it is very important that the body, mind, everything should be your slaves. Nothing should dominate you. You should be on top of everything. How dare your body ask for anything? How dare your mind tells you anything? How this conditioning works on you. I am a Sahaja Yogi, I am above everything. Like the lotuses have come out of the ponds, you have come out of it. We have so many proofs to show that you are realized souls. I'll show you some photographs that I have to show that there is light. I can put light into you, they are all enlightened. But in my presence, if you become the light, you must carry the light outside. Not only in my presence, but when you go out. But one of the reasons I think when I tell something, people just start thinking about whom mother is talking. They never think she's talking about me. That's the only way you can penetrate within yourself. When you see that mother is talking about me, she's correcting me alone and she's telling me, then only it will penetrate and it will work out. The priorities have to be changed, and the first and foremost is your ascent and the spirit and Sahaja Yoga. The rest is negligible, nothing important. Then the faith that there is this all-pervading power which is looking after us is very important. This time the musicians came all the way. I must tell you the story of their travel. They came and they said that there's a train from Kiev, and they also bought the ticket, so got into the train. And they were offloaded before the Hungarian border. They didn't know what to do. They had no visas, nothing, and not so much money also. They thought we are on the train. They said, no, you have to go cross over and go to Budapest. And they didn't know where. They were standing on the road. But they were all laughing and enjoying. Must be something in store for us. Nobody felt that they were in trouble or anything. So surrendered. So suddenly they said the custom people came and surrounded them, and they said, what's the matter? How are you here with all these bags and baggages? So they said, why are you here? They said, we have come for a concert, and they said, musicians we are, and all. And somehow or other they started melting away. And then they gave them realization. 6 of them got realization. Now can you believe the power of love? And the custom officers, they offered their own cars, took them down to the other side. It's never happened with custom officers, imagine. It would be like shaving their teeth off, I tell you. The way, if you can do that to the custom officer. But it happened. And they came to the other side and left them there. Now they didn't know what to do. They wanted to go to Budapest. They had to walk about 2 miles or something to the station. So they're waiting there. Well, they said that, Mother, you sent maybe 2 Yugoslavs came in a big bus of 49 people, all vacant. They stopped the bus and said, what is it? Why are you here? So they said, this is our problem and we have to go. So they got into the bus. When he was driving them down, they thought of talking to him that why not you take us to Milan? And they managed. And they were in Milan. It's so remarkable. So to have faith completely in yourself and in that power which is surrounding you. And once you have that faith, you will realize that though it is so helpful to you, it is so kind to you, on the same level, if you think it can be very harmful. So then, never listen to the Guru Ninda. Means anybody talks anything ill about your Guru, just put your hands to your ears, absolutely immediately. I've known of a person who did that, got cancer, another now in jail, another one there. So anybody is saying like that, just put your hands, because now you know that. What is your Guru? So you should never hear anything against your Guru from anyone. The other day, one gentleman asked me a question, a newsman. He said that, I'm told you have made a castle for yourself. I said, I have paid for it, I have made it also. It was a horrid place, no doubt. But there are only Sahajogis staying there, I am not staying there. That's the best part. But that's all I said. But on the contrary, they never go and ask these questions to any gurus or anything. Because the disciples say, yes, so what? We want to give to our Guru money and this and that. They never ask. But through Sahaja Yoga or myself, I have cured so many people of incurable diseases. I could have minted money. For curing one cancer patient, I could have made a castle myself. So when people say like that, you should say, do you know how many people she has cured? How much money she could have taken from them if she was a doctor or she was a false guru? How much money she would have made out of all of them? Then they will understand. You see, because they are being materialistic, they talk like that. And their attitude is very different. And so to tell them off is the best way, because I've seen that these press people are absolutely harassed by the disciples of the false gurus. Just they cannot criticize. They cannot say a word against such false gurus, while I find that Sahajogis still lack that complete faith in themselves and complete assertion. Where you have to assert, you must assert. For example, anybody says something wrong against me, you have to assert. Must say no, not possible. It's not. But I've seen some people asking me funny questions who are Sahajogis also. So the first part is that to see how much we are sensitive to spirituality. I've seen Sahajogis supporting somebody who is so negative, you can't even bear that person, and such a person is something great. While somebody who is so good, they cannot make it out. So what's the use? Your computer is so faulty. The planes will have to run up and down if you have such a computer as Sahajogis are, because they just the other way down. A person who is good in Sahaja Yoga, who has got vibration, he may be simple, he may be unassuming, he may not be so rich, he may not be so educated, may not be from some good universities, anything, but you must see the vibrations of that person. What sort of vibrations that person has, and then you should judge. Instead of that, if you judge that person only because he is very good to talk and he talks well and very scholarly or something like that, that's not the point. The point is, what are his vibrations? Once you see those vibrations and judge them on vibrations, then you are a Sahaja. Otherwise, I would not call you at all a Sahajogi, but for a Guru, it is very important. I have seen sometimes even the leaders supporting somebody who is absolutely horrid. I can't bear that person, even for 5 minutes. But here the Guru sends him over to me. Oh, mother, he's so good, he donated so much money. It doesn't matter. He donated money, so what? Who asked him to donate money? But he should not donate his booths to us now anymore. We don't want his booth. So that's what it is. So the judgment should be correct about a person when you say that this man is not good or that not good. But mostly gurus themselves are caught up. And then they have ambitions, and if somebody doesn't listen to them, or somebody wants to give a lecture at a wrong time and somebody says you shouldn't talk like this or something, then they get angry. They have very hot temper and they provoke people, they say things sometimes, and then when people react, they say you are a bad Sahaja. That's not the way. First of all, a guru or a leader has to be himself a very mild, gentle and a good person. He has to be in such a way, he should not demand anything, he should not ask for anything. Never demand anything. Anybody who demands cannot be a guru. Respect is to be commanded and not to be demanded. And so, everything works out well if you understand that once you rise in your ascent, in your wisdom, in your awareness, and in your spirit, automatically all these things happen. You don't have to ask for anything. You don't have to plead for anything. You don't have to complain for anything. Everything works out. You are looked after by all the ganas, by all the angels. They are there. You are on the stage. But if you are halfway, then they play tricks with you. See, they play tricks. They make you falter. You have problems. You go here, you go there. All these things happen. And then you say, Mother, how is it this happened? Because they are also jokers. So they play jokes with you. And they make problems for you, just to make you understand that you are doing wrong. So we are on a stage where there's a beautiful security, everything is there, and we have to give to the world such a great thing like Sahaja, which is for the emancipation of the whole world, as you realize. And so also I hope you realize your responsibilities. There are so many things one has to understand, how one has to be as a guru, how he has to act, and how he has to work out. Now I have given so many lectures on guru things, but for today's lecture, only I have to say that first thing to have a guru system, you must have complete humility. Now, with me, I would say I am too simple and I am Mahamaya. So you be very careful. You cannot take liberties with me. You cannot take. If you try to take too much liberties, that means you are not a disciple. A disciple has to keep a distance from the Guru. You cannot just take liberties, walk into my room every time, sit there for hours together, chit-chat with me, nothing. You have no right. Only when I call you, when I ask for you, you should go. Then you should not force things on the Guru, that please come and listen to this or do this. That should not be so. For example, yesterday nobody told me there are going to be these music programs or everything arranged. So we have to report everything to your leader or to me. All those things that you want to do. And it should be really transparent. Like this hand knows everything that this hand is doing, and this hand knows everything that this hand is doing. In the same way, everybody should know each other. Then the gurus should not have jealousies for each other. I'm just telling you, because also I have found out that there are certain jealousies. And when they talk, there's a little bit of, he's good, but this. When they enjoy each other's company, because they have reached a certain state, and they understand this is the state we are in. When they enjoy each other's company fully and appreciate each other much more than anybody else, the Guru's company, all the company of the leaders, if they enjoy each other, and there's no jealousy, there's no fight, there's no problem, but just the enjoyment of the company, then they should know that they have become Guru. Now, all of them never fought with each other. They supported. Actually, it is one principle was born again and again. But only the satanic people, they will fight among themselves, not the godly. And also, they will talk against the person who is a realized soul or who is an incarnation, but never against themselves. It's very surprising that the satanic people, though they fight among themselves, there are jealousies. They'll never talk of each other. But here I find that in Sahaja we have freedom. But freedom is not abandonment, it's the freedom with complete rules and regulations of the divine with us, and we have to know them that this is the divine law. So all of us are now sitting like in a big vimana, like an aeroplane, and we all have to land into the beautiful area. But first of all, we have to develop that humility in your heart. Complete humility and surrender. That's very important. Unless and until you have that humility and surrender in your heart, Guru principle cannot be awakened. First you have to be the disciple and then the Guru. So you have to develop that humility. And that humility comes very easily if you love me, respect me. It's not only love, but respect. That respect has to be there, and then people will respect you. May God bless you.
Let us sit together in meditation and absorb the vibrations from Mother's holy words.
त्वमेव साक्षात् श्री महालक्ष्मी महासरस्वती महाकाली त्रिगुणात्मिका कुंडलिनी साक्षात् श्री आदिशक्ति माता जी श्री निर्मला देव्यै नमो नमः। ॐ त्वमेव साक्षात् श्री कल्की साक्षात् श्री आदिशक्ति माता जी श्री निर्मला देव्यै नमो नमः। ॐ त्वमेव साक्षात् श्री कल्की साक्षात् श्री सहस्रार स्वामिनी मोक्ष प्रदायिनी माता जी श्री निर्मला देव्यै नमो नमः।
Jai Shri Mataji, we wish you a wonderful preparation for Guru Puja. Much love from all of us here in Portugal. Jai Shri Mataji.